As we inch to the top of the hour, the Kickstarter here on Morning at NTV gets underway. We are going to be talking data-driven approaches to youth development as we explore global youth development indicators and how Uganda plays into that space. On set, I'm joined by Youth MP aspirant for Eastern Uganda, Ivan Masawi. He's also the chairman of the Forum for Democratic Change Youth Wing in Mbale. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for hosting me. I'm really honored, and to the people of Eastern and Mbale, we kindly appreciate you for inviting us to be part of the show.
Great, you're most welcome. We're also joined by Moses Kidega, a lawyer and youth leader within the governing National Resistance Movement, and a regular with us here on Morning at NTV. Glad to see you again.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning to our viewers.
Great. Our preamble this morning is youth development indicators as metrics used to track young people's progress in areas like education, employment, health, inclusion, peace, civic participation, and helping governments and NGOs assess well-being, compare progress, and target investments for a holistic youth potential development as seen from frameworks including the Commonwealth Youth Development Index. Today, we want to understand from the perspective or the opinion of the youth leaders what ought to be done, how, and what needs to be tweaked where. Data-driven approaches to youth development may suggest to some that we are moving without sufficient data to determine what interventions are made. Let me first speak to Moses Kidega, the NRM youth leader and lawyer. Do you find any discomfort in the rollout of interventions targeting the youth over the last decade, so to speak? Are they data-driven?
All right, thank you. I think, let me start by saying that data per se is not the biggest issue here. To me, the concern rather should be that whether the parameters that we are using to gather this data are meaningful. Because for so long we are inclined to use global standards. That, for example, if you're ascertaining the level of unemployment or the level of poverty, there is an appetite to move towards the standards set for us by IMF, World Bank, and those other global institutions. And no wonder, even when you go to Central Bank, you'll find an IMF desk, you'll find a World Bank desk stationed right there. So you are not sure whether the data that even Central Bank gives us is data that is domestic or customized or tailored to the local needs, but rather whether it is motivated by the appeal for the global standards. So I thought by just stating that first. But to bring it back to the context of the question that you asked is that, yes, if you look at government's interventions with regards to issues affecting young people, unemployment, education, health, and etc. Because in my view, I think because young people are over 75%, it means that every government intervention should be targeting young people.
Should be targeting young people.
Because otherwise, then who is it targeting?
Who is it targeting anyway?
So I think any intervention by a government, be it on peace and security, be it on healthcare, education, is either directly or indirectly affecting young people or targeting young people. But as to whether there is customized and tailored or directly motivated interventions for young people inspired by data, yes. Because UBOS has told us that unemployment grows at a rate of 3.1%, and you can see that with that statistic, government has moved fast to ensure that there are more interventions on poverty alleviation, all right? And that is why today you'll have programs like the Poverty Development Model, Youth Livelihood Program, Youth Capital Venture Fund. All these are meant to avail young people with soft credit that they would have found rather inaccessible had they gone to commercial banks which give money at 24% interest rate rather. So you can see that that is a data-driven initiative, all right? If you go to education, the idea or the principle behind the NRM policy that we must have a primary school at every parish, a secondary school at every sub-county, and a vocational school at every district is inspired by the fact that the literacy gap must be, the literacy gap must be filled, but also it is inspired by the fact that the skills being acquired by the formal institutions of learning vis-a-vis the skill set that is required by the job market, there's a big gap. And that's why government has moved to create vocational training schools, and that's why today you have all these over 18 presidential skilling centers. Now, this is clearly driven by data, because if you lack the data to indicate that there's a gap between the skills being attained from school vis-a-vis what is required by the job market, then you won't move in to try and fill in that gap. All right, and we can go on and on, but my point is with agreement that yes, the NRM government has had interventions to support young people, and this has been inspired by data. But my broader question would be that the parameters that we use that are global in nature, do they meet the interests of low developed countries like Uganda, or they are just another way of control and of neocolonialism?
Okay. I think what I do capture entirely is the domestication of interventions that are tailored to the realities of our youth and the country, Uganda. Mr. Ivan Masawi, you are a contestant and you want to become the youth MP for Eastern Uganda. I might be inclined to ask you questions that are current into Eastern Uganda, but one thing I know is that the youth in the East, the West, North are pretty much encountering the very challenges, and they know exactly what needs to be done and what needs to be treated where. What is your thrust in terms of campaign or manifesto, so to speak?
Thank you very much. Before I come to my thrust on manifesto, because my entire agenda is to be a voice of the youth, especially in the legislative processes on the floor of parliament. I want to go back on the issue of data. Data, both domestic and international, is used to help in the gap of planning and also fill the vacuum of ineffectiveness. It is really rare to say data is not an issue. When I heard someone say data is not an issue. The Constitution of Uganda establishes UBOS to provide data. It establishes the Equal Opportunities Commission that produced the 12th annual report on the state of equal opportunity in Uganda to offer us data. Forums, both in Parliament, where me and him fall, we have been members of the National Youth Council. There is the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Youth Affairs. They recently produced the State of the Youth National Report. All those reports are always aligned to data. So, we can never run away from data, because in a generation that is today driven by information, data-driven and IT-driven, data is seen as a yardstick, a backbone for fast planning, but also seeing that you're effective. Part of the issues that are affecting African governance is ineffectiveness. And ineffectiveness can only be appreciated by the way you use data, both application, not just collection. The biggest disease we are having as a country, we have become very good data collectors, but we never use the data right. Whether you go to public health, you go to infrastructure. So, coming back to the question of my
maybe before you transition, I just want us to be at the same page. He is concerned about the parameters under which we arrive at the data that we do. And many times, if you have the wrong parameters, then the data could be skewed and your interventions could basically be, misguided. I
will give you an example of UBOS. Ineffective the parameters that may have used in the collection techniques and methods. Still, it has a bias of representation that creates it. You can't always say that parameters are the reasons for you not also having your own consciousness to data. To any researcher, that is just a basic. You can never say that there is always data bias, there is always likelihood that data will never be effective 100%. But to the viewers there, they know very well, they live in this country like we do. How often do we see data-driven policy advocacy, data-driven legislation, data-driven government interventions? That would be the debate. Because these are not made by NGOs, they are made using taxpayers' money. So this data should be used effectively to serve the taxpayers. So coming back to the first, personally, as a young person who hails from a humble background in Bududa, running for UFMP was not because it is a fashion or interest, but was out of conviction. The conviction comes back from the inequalities that have underrated the potential of young people in this country, which some are intentional, some are systematic, some are out of ignorance. So I came out of conviction to say that as a young person, I can champion a cause to see that as young people, we raise up to see that even in legislation, our voices are effectively captured. And I believe I'm the right candidate for that cause, to see that the young people's voice on education, on health, on creative arts, on issues of financing, but issues of digital literacy and adopting digital skills to compete globally in the global market is also. So coming out of this shape, I chose out to be a champion of this cause with the slogan that I'm the voice for the youth, because I believed that in this era, that again relating to the topic, that is driven by data. There is enough data for a legislator to create a critical mass. If you use that, you fraud this data well to the electorate, you fraud this data well to the population, because the advantages that a data-driven governance system offers, and I say most of the Western cultures are serving based on data, is that part of Uganda's challenge has been wastage, leave alone the 10 trillion lost corruption. But in the administrative sector, we have too much of undesired human resource and again have a very big population of unemployed people. When you have these mismatches, you create a lot of dependence. When you look at the UBO statistics, we have around 22,750,000 people below the age of 18. But the 23 million who are above the age of 18, 10.5 million are between 18 and 30, and are the people I look to represent. He has been representing the very people at the National Youth Council. So, during his term of representation, 5.5 million of them are not in education, they are not in training, they are not anywhere that a country should tap. And on the 1.3 million Ugandan, according to UBOS, Ugandan youth between the age of 15 and 30 that are employed, 800,000 of them are living in Kampala and Uganda. So where do we, me and him who come from North and Eastern, where do our youth fall? Is why we need to see that we address data in governance intentionally, not because of campaigning, because accept it, believe it, we are left behind when we shy away from using a data-driven approach in governance. In this time of era, where we have tools, where we have metrics that can aid whether legislation, whether contact, whether service delivery, whether contact and engagement. These are all yes.
Okay, yeah, that is perfectly understandable. Allow me to pick your minds on the history of legislation in Uganda that ought to have hinged on data, information, research. We have members of parliament, for example, who don't have a chief of staff, who don't have a researcher, but they have a handler Many times this handler does the opening of the car, the calling of people, and ensuring that whoever has lost a relative back in the constituency has the condolence delivered. This is how members of parliament see a team that is supposed to help them do their work. It is not about researchers doing the doing the groundwork of ensuring that before a particular piece of legislation come through, that MP is armed with this information. How is this going to change? One individual coming through in this term and coming with that way of doing things, can it change? Can it form a mass, a new wave? How do you, what hope is there anyway?
All right, thank you. Let me just clarify something before I proceed. There's a difference between data is not the issue vis-a-vis the issue is not data. Those two statements, whereas they might sound similar, they are not the same.
Can you repeat that?
There's a difference between...
So I can follow?
There's a difference between data is not the issue...
Data is not the issue.
...and
the issue
is not data. And I think my brother misunderstood in terms of interpretation. What I meant to say is that our biggest challenge as a country is not that we don't lack data. The data is there, UBOS has given it to us, but the context or the contention for me is that how is the data gotten, and of course what he said, how do we eventually use that data, right? To me, that is where the bigger discussion should be. Then to your question, of course, the history of legislation in Uganda has continuously deteriorated. And for many reasons. One is that you have an overly sized parliament, all right? So a member of parliament knows that even if I do research, even if I discover whatever I have to discover, is that I will barely have a chance to present this research on the floor of parliament. So that is one. It is true that business happens mostly in the committees, but even there, you will understand or you will appreciate that the committees themselves are overly bloated. So to me, I think the increased population, the increased size of members of parliament has continuously affected the level of debate, which in tandem affects, because I mean, what is the motive? If you know that you will not have the chance to speak on the floor of parliament, that is psychologically going to demotivate a member of parliament to even go ahead and do research. And that is very unfortunate because a member of parliament is paid by taxpayers' money. So you cannot afford to have the luxury of saying, I will choose to carry out my research, I will choose to, put in the effort to read and to discover, all right? The Honorable Semuju, sometime while appearing on an NBS show, came with a collection of 3 very huge books, each of which I think costing over 4,000 pages. And he tells you that this is information that a member of parliament must be accustomed to before they can go to discuss a budgetary session. So it is true that the magnitude required by a member of parliament to do research, to read and to extensively know what issues are affecting their people is required. But the current reality with the oversized parliament that we have, but also with the quality and the mode through which members of parliament are gotten, is very wanting. Because if you have a member of parliament making it to that August House on the premise that they had the most amount of money in their constituency, or on election day they had the most either security forces or things like that, you are going to have a quality that lacks the interest, first of all, because you see, the interest must exist. The interest to represent your people, the interest to advocate for these issues must exist. But if your motive and if what got you there was other factors that I've mentioned earlier on, is that you will find yourself underperforming, and you will see the need to do research as a burden, all right? So to me, I premise the lack of data-driven legislation on 2 issues. One is the mode of our politics that has highly been commercialized and therefore attracting the wrong individuals in the August House. And then 2 is that the continuous gerrymandering of our country to create so many members of parliament, one, which has become very expensive administratively for us as a country, but two, it has limited the debate and obviously the quality of the debate on the floor of parliament.
Ivan Masawi, at committee level, this is where I see data, especially within the context of Uganda's Legislative Assembly, being needed. Because the 2, 3, or even 5 minutes that the Speaker gives each member of Parliament on the floor to be able to articulate anyone concerned might not be sufficient to allow for one who has dug deep into 400-page documents on any one particular issue to speak. Let's imagine January 15th is done and you're an MP for the youth in Mbale. What is the new approach that is going to ensure you effectively use whatever data is available to you, either by your research team or on account of your reading and knowledge gathering? How are you going to navigate that? You remember with the Forum for Democratic Change, you're hamstrung already, especially that the governing National Resistance Movement doesn't work with MPs who are not from within its...
Parliament naturally is like a school. That those who are admitted, there are students who strive to be the best, and there are those who are naturally weak. But because of society's challenges, they have found themselves MPs and they are in Parliament. So some fail to deliver because the National Media Group this week via the Daily Monitor gave us a reporting on MPs by their performance.
That is right.
In terms of the floor, but also committee performance. And you would see that you can't give what you don't have. If you're dull and you're not a reader, you have not invested in your brain, there is no way you lie people that you reach Parliament and create magic. Parliament is like a school where there should be best students and those, but the issue here that has created ineffectiveness is Uganda has a very big portion of dull MPs and very few that are intentional on using data research, and is also by the fashion of government. Our government basically has people, there has been a war previously, I think the NMG covered it, or a war on elites in some political shapings, accusing elites that they are good speakers but they don't deliver. Part of the inefficiencies that this government has created for MPs is that he has disappeared in lives of ordinary Ugandans. As an MP, you see concentrating on some of the key 5 cardinal points of an MP, but you now have to do family level domestic issues of the constituency, funds educating children, buying ambulances, ensuring that you provide trucks for people who have burials, you bury people, you need to buy a casket. And that has been systematic, that the impoverishment of people at community level, this is some of the things I contributed when we were coming up with the FDC manifesto, has left a big gap between the real government and the citizen, and now the MP who is destined to act as a link. Few of those MPs have capacity to get a solution that is data-driven. Why? Because even themselves, some were not prepared. Looking at what they were going to do, they just wanted to be an MP, and then they think when you get to Parliament, you eventually change into giving what you don't have. So most of the MPs we have in Uganda in this era are highly educated. The issue of size would be an issue, but if it is a size which is big and highly educated, productivity would not be an issue. Statistics don't lie. You can't say you're many, but what is affecting you is the flow. At least by committee standards, you would see good COSASE reports delivering, you would see PAC reports delivering, education committee, ICT, because at least every member of parliament in the parliamentary framework is gazetted to appear somewhere. It is just intentional that the population has got some people whom they have put their efforts in to represent them, and these people don't meet this basic quality and standards of their voices. So as we blame the MPs, we need to also blame some voters, that Why do you vote someone without also using someone's consciousness to data? At least for the constituency. There are MPs who don't know the number of schools in their constituencies. Not even their villages. They just sleep there, wake up. There are some MPs now in this area who can sleep in another constituency and represent a different constituency. You can't say you're intentional to data when the basics of data where you come from, you're even not well versed with them. That becomes a challenge. So, as I go to my seniors' endorsement of the cost, because I don't think politics is going to become any cheaper. But we need to look at getting, at least making it that, because public expenditure now is standing at 9.8 trillion, these people should be more productive than they are, including myself if I get there. Ugandans demand a lot from people that are paying highly to use their heads and be productive to them. We cannot be getting parliamentary backlogs where issues that are pertinent to Ugandans, they are decided in State House, they are decided in quorums, yet we send there 529 people with heads, most with degrees, but they can't decide over a small issue. They need to go to President Museveni to decide for them. They just carry their heads, come back to Parliament, move around Kampala from day to night, but unproductive. I have not had I would not be having a big issue with the size of Parliament if it was productive in the lives of a common Ugandan. In unemployment of the young people who are grumbling on the streets, in the infrastructure, the roads as people go for Christmas, in the education, if there was school feeding policies and...
sorry to just two things for me. One is that, let me just give you information here that the plenary has powers to veto decisions of a committee. So it means that even if the committee does fantastic work, eventually the parliamentary business starts and ends with plenary. So it means that that plenary also must in itself be effective. Otherwise, if you have an effective committee level legislation, but then an ineffective plenary level, still it's an issue. But also too, is that you cannot dispute the issue of numbers, because it's like saying that you have a very small hall here, but then you have 500 people who have to pass through this hall, but you've given them 10 minutes that all of them must cross over. You are going to
look at effective house. The size of the hall may be bigger to allow them for
just a minute. 10 minutes. You won't have all 500 people crossing over this side. All right.
You need to find a mechanism.
You must find a mechanism to allow all these guys to, within the period of time that you've given them, effectively cross over to this side. So you can never undermine the 529 member of parliament directly or indirectly influences the quality of output of that parliament.
There are schools who sit bigger numbers for enable, and win schools who set some malnourished numbers in results. The whole issue here is
at the same time. Here, not all of us can speak
education,
at the same time.
You study at the same time.
Yes.
Being in parliament, you all be there for 5 years. We don't assess an MP basing on one evening on the floor of parliament.
Parliament,
I think
Parliament is a one-tier communication. The speaker and a particular MP at a time. It is one-to-one. A school, a teacher can address 500 students at a given point in time, and they're all perceiving of the same knowledge.
Okay, those are let's not dwell too much on the semantics and here, because those are nitty-gritties that can actually be dealt with on another day. But let me just keep focused to the our debate this morning, and the fact that when you juxtapose how interventions, for example, in other parts of the world are rolled out vis-a-vis what we do, Uganda scores very highly, especially when it comes to the quality of policies, so much so that many say some policies are copied from Uganda and implemented elsewhere. But looking at the Youth Manifesto in itself, does it address the fundamental issues that affect or does it present an opportunity to push further the youth agenda in the most effective way, given all the challenges we face, including the failure of the state in many cases?
the biggest pain we are having in this era as young people is the National Youth Council, where he has been a leader that is responsible for young people being dead and almost being near to being buried. In the last years, it was facing issues of funding.
Mr. Kidega.
Now it has been engulfed by the ministry, the Mother Ministry of Gender Labor. And as a leader, I think we need to come out irrespective of political party, but as young people in this country, to see that the hub, the nursery bed of nurturing this country's next leaders is well planned for, systematic, nice, intentional mentorship, intentional facilitation towards this institution, that whatever comes out of it is a footprint of the national goals and aspirations of this country. Coming back to the issue of young people, it has been a routine and a behavior that most of the young people voted to legislate on behalf of young people, which as flower girls and flower boys of political parties they represent. But now with the high quality of young people achieving education, the high numbers of young people unemployed, the high numbers of young people whose futures are uncertain, I felt they needed a leader like me who first can address issues based on the systematic and thematic areas the country is leaning on. Areas of agriculture, because I come from an agricultural background. Areas of education, I've also studied. I'm not here like a young person who has bought papers. I'm highly educated, I'm an engineer, and I have a master's in project planning and management. Areas of health, I'm a biomedical engineer by training. Areas of accountability, I understand because I've been mentored by the Right Honorable Nandala Masawi, who is a senior accountant. Areas of infrastructure, I've studied with engineers. I can best address them on the floor of parliament. And areas of speaking and voice, I've been a leader from Kyambogo University to Mbale SS to Bishop Senior Mukono to my primary school in Bududa. So coming up as a leader best is that for the first time we want to see that the representation in parliament solves the basics the country is grappling with. Those are the challenges of the 70%, but of this 70%, there is a 22.3% who are between 18 and 30. Those whose mandate and survival is basically leaning on us. Whenever young people have leaders who are not vocal and articulate, the situation reaches what happened in Kenya during the Financial Bill 2024. Young people feel that their voices are not captured in the legislative agenda, and it is when you see now government coming up with programs like PDM, they will use that money to buy smartphones and support opposition-leaning candidates via TikTok, via reposting them, because governance is felt. Governance is not just preached, that people will sit in a church, and governance is felt. Young people, for the first time in this era, which is now highly exposed, they don't need a governance system that limits their potential. For the first time, they seek leaders, they seek a government that accelerates their potential. There has been a big tendency of this country of governance structures creating a lot of mediocres. For the first time, we want to call out a voice that no young person in Uganda is meant to be a mediocre, that they can't afford even $1 a day. The Equal Opportunities Report, the 12th, came out to show the minority report. And when you look at the poverty levels in Karamoja, Acholi, Rango, West Nile, and Eastern, where me and him come from, it is hard to believe that in this era we have people who don't have 2 pairs of clothes. And they are young people, and we are their leaders. And we have a government that is losing a lot of money on a daily, but having a lot of extravagant expenditures. These are issues first that start with the National Youth Council being advocated for to be very effective. For the first time, I think, I request those who are NRM leaning and that be conscious at least that when things overchange, your children can feel proud about what you did in your youth for them. Secondly, in the basic cardinal roles of an MP, legislation, budgeting, representation, and oversight, we need to see that these roles give too much coverage to the young people. Especially when we see we need education policy reviews, we need minimum wage bills, we need all these need capturing the voice of young people because they are exploited. When you look at the ICT bill, we don't need laws that are advocating more to retain that young people are more of misuse, but we need laws that help young people understand the use. We shall not always look at misuse. They are threatening government. They are threatening government. Were always sometimes young people. They will just got recognized when they grew older. But history everywhere is made by young people. Museveni was a very young, chaotic man. Even him, he speaks about it. But he just got recognized after the bush. So we don't need the very young people to go to the bush to seek recognition. We want for the first time to see that we advocate for a governance that identifies the potential of young people, that addresses the potential of young people, and the potential is always small. Thematic areas, employment, education reviews, health, because they need to be healthy, ICT needs creative arts. Other issues will need to go away, defense, money, roads. Those are, even a dull president can do them. But when you look at these NRM people, sometimes they are painful.
Mr. Kidega, the National Resistance Movement appears to be in transitional mode, where we see so many youth leaders coming to the forefront. If the Central Executive Committee, for example, is anything to go by, we see so many youthful leaders there. It does speak to something, yet it doesn't at the same time. There are many who feel that youth are simply vehicles or tools being used by the older generation, especially within the party. Could you, I wouldn't say debunk, but what is your take on the fact that those who appear to be youthful within the NRM are actually simply clogs or cogs?
All right. I think the question, if I'm to rephrase it, is one of form versus substance. That whereas in form, you have these young people occupying offices, and that even in the SEC or even at cabinet level, you have really fairly young ministers. But the question I think that is fundamental is that whether their being there is tangible and whether it transforms into tangible impact.
Essentially, it's widely seen as tokenism. Tokenism.
Because you see, tokenism, if it gets the output that we desire, then
as a party?
Then, no, as young people, then it is not bad per se. That how is that? Listen, if Masawi is given a cabinet position on the basis of him being young, and him being in that position has impact for us as young people, it came, yes, as a token, but it is substantially working for us as young people. To me, that would not be the fundamental issue. All right? I think tokenism, for as long as it is abused, is where it becomes an issue. Because it's a matter of paraphrasing it and how you choose to coin the word.
Tokenism, just a minute, let me hold you in your tracks there. Tokenism doesn't come with mandate to do things, with support to do things, with the fact that somebody knows they don't really have the power or the leverage to effectively roll out whatever policy or implementation that is required. They are simply there to say, yes, yeah.
Then
it's just being honest. Just young people's sympathy.
I beg to disagree with you on that. Because, you know, again, if that is the case, it means that then could apply across all institutions. That even the leader of opposition, even the Forum for Democratic Change, the leaders therein are only holding positions, but they are ineffective. But the point I'm trying to say is that if your point of contention is with regards to all institutions in Uganda, then that would not be a fair analysis. But bring it back to the NRM and bring it back to how things are being done, whereby we are seeing more young people occupying offices, all right? Like I said, if a young person gets appointed as a minister or wins an election within the party, that in itself is not what should be celebrated. But what should be celebrated is that whether them holding that position eventually translates into tangible, substantive impact for the group that they intend to represent. And I think for the case of the NRM, I think there is progress being made. That whenever you see young people occupying offices, they go in with the mindset because they have experienced the challenges that young people undergo through every day. Issues of unemployment, issues of sexual reproductive health, among others. So we have seen them rise to the occasion, some of them, and go ahead to advocate for the issues that we believe represent us as young people. But if we are to use the context of, for example, Zohran Mamdani, who has just won the mayoral race in New York City, is that whether him being a young mayor in the history of New York will translate into some sort of a better situation for young people is a discussion for another day. But we can say
juxtaposition, though the systemic and the systematic issues within New York are totally different from ours. They allow Zohran Mabdad to do the work he has to do.
That was an example. Is that whether him being there and being a young person will directly mean that his policies will somehow influence young people is a discussion for another day.
Okay.
And just one last example.
Very last.
Is that when Barack Obama became president, there was euphoria across Africa and really the black minority in America. But under the Obama administration is when we saw the worst racial issues in America, is when we saw Libya, is when we saw Afghanistan. So it is not true. In fact, Black Lives Matter emerged under Obama's administration. So it is not true that because you have either a young person or a black man holding office, therefore it will translate directly into
all right, Mr. Masawi, I know there's a lot that you need to react to with regards to Mr. Kidega's submission, but time is not my best ally right now. As an aspiring youth MP and an FDC member, I just want you very quickly, in a minute, what is FDC's support structure for youth? We haven't seen Nathan and Ala Mafabi apart from telling us how money should be in our pockets. How should money be in the pockets of the youth so that the $1 dilemma that you spoke earlier is done away with? Very quickly.
The fifth thematic area of the FDC Youth Manifesto was made by me and colleagues, and we address women and young people. Part of the issues we address is the review in the education review, is issues of skilling hubs and skilling, the issues of revamping institutions like Uganda Chambers of Commerce, issues of graduate and apprenticeship schemes to prepare that is the Directorate of Training, TVETs and what, to see that they are intentionally systematic, organized, to see that they deal with the input and output in terms of preparation of skills and knowledge, to see that our graduates are appreciating value. But even the numbers of the 8 million learners that join school and reach P7 when they are not even a million, we looked at how do we become effective this. We say we address feeding, we address issues of menstrual hygiene, we address issues of material, issues of ICT per school. We say that we address issues of the gap in the creative investment in sports, leisure, because this is a big industry. So coming back to what do I speak to the cause of the young people, the FDC manifesto, we spoke to the cause of the young people. And because the debate today is data, data is measured, data is evaluated, data is monitored, and data is a yardstick to whatever most of the duties that FDC is always doing. It is not a lie that when you look at an FDC legislator, he may know more data than the country's needs. It is always the intention in FDC structures that they look at data-driven legislators. So coming back to what we have for the young people, Eastern region is unique in its way, even when you go and read the Equal Opportunities Report. Regions, representing regions and the constituents, there is a difference. You stand by the region's demands. We have the sugar crisis that needs a sugar council in Busoga to advocate for fluctuation of sugarcane prices. In Bugis, where we have two issues of natural disasters and roads. Where I come from in Bududa, there is no Tamaka road today in the 40 years of service, but Bududa is producing a lot. So when we go to Bukedi, Bukedi is one of the most impoverished regions. If you go to the Equal Opportunities Report, it has less than 100,000 youth in employment. On the big population it has, taking the 1 million in the UBOS report. So these are issues where the government should channel more to the unique opportunities in regions. We have the issues of the Sabines, issues of sports infrastructure, issues of their Irish needing more value. In Teso, we have issues. Today now, Teso is war-free. Teso should address issues of agro-processing in their fruit growth of oranges, I don't like this sick compensation where people are only relying. We need to be compensated for cows. Okay. One cow is not going to solve your issue. It's why as the FDC we looked at the first thing towards solving the basic issues of Ugandans is that let's reconcile the regressiveness tax approach to see that where Ugandan is losing too much, for example, on fuel, you're losing 1,800 tax on a liter. At least let's make it 1,000. That on every liter, if you retained 800, you will push that 800 into production, and we get you as a tax graduate, or we qualify you somewhere else, because the biggest issue we have is that most Ugandans are living at a high cost of living, which makes our money struggle in our own pockets, but which also makes the basic service needs very expensive. So as government, your key role is to reduce the things people spend money on. We had here a discussion on education before the show began. Today, if the best school that produces a man of high demand in this country like you is no longer in existence, but we have small private schools that produce students who can't get jobs, and these students are paying 2 million shillings for school fees per term, but they can't even get unemployment. That is a systematic failure not only of the government but also the youth leaders. We need to be aggressive enough. Thank
you very much. And just for some clarity, you might say the school you talk about is Aga Khan Primary School.
Yes.
That is in Mbale, where some of us studied, and somehow because of the local governance issues there, it was erased from the topography there. Very unfortunate incident. Kidega, you came under attack, especially with regard to the Youth Council and its apparent inclination to work as an arm of the national resistance movement instead of an arbiter for the youth across the entire nation. This is a serious accusation, and you as a youth leader ought to be able to reassure the likes of Masawi and other youth out there who see the Youth Council as terribly, terribly miscued in terms of intentions.
Really, to whom much is given, much is expected. But also it's easy to speak from the peripheral. When you get into once you get your hands dirty is when you appreciate that some things don't happen overnight. The Youth Council that Masawi is talking about under our tenure managed to secure regulations under the PPDA. Today, young people can participate in government procurement at central government level up to a tune of 100 million. Those contracts, we ensured that they are preserved for youth-led businesses, youth-led entrepreneurs. At local government, it's at 10 million. If that is not progress in itself, then I don't know what progress is. Our advocacy on issues of even political prisoners has come out very, very clearly. We have held several conferences to several press conferences calling out government to really, because the people who are being detained or incarcerated without trial are largely young people who should be out in productivity and helping the country grow and transform. If they're being incarcerated, it somehow affects the country's growth. Our voices was heard on that matter. So I think it's really any other sweeping statement that someone can make to score political points. But what we have done as the National Youth Council speaks for itself. The partnerships that we have created with United Nations, with today as we speak, UNFPA, together with our partnership, is implementing a project in 8 districts across the northern and eastern region, whereby they are training and educating a minimum of 800 young people per district in every financial year. That was our strategic lobbying and our strategic leadership of the Youth Council. So I think, again, we are speaking about data, but my friend here lacks data. He has not taken time to really find out what we have actually done, because the data is out there on our website, it is out there on our social media platforms. Whatever we have done and the impact we have made is out there for anyone to see.
Okay, thank you very much.
The arm of the NRM.
No, they...
How have you...
The NYC...
There is that accusation that keeps going on.
No. The NYC is not an extension of the NRM Youth League. It is not. It is, yes, the membership of the Youth Council. Why is
the lobbying for funds and government support usually done in a way that appears like appeasement, instead of asking for what really you deserve as a youth council? But
appeasement, yet we held demonstrations before Parliament. So was that us seeking appeasement or us demanding for what we rightfully deserve? So even the process of us demanding for our budget increment or reinstatement, we did not go begging. We said, Parliament, this is what the Youth Council does, here is our budget, and this is what we demand. We did not go kneeling down. So,
you didn't go wearing yellow.
No. But also as to whether the Youth Council is an extension of the NRM Youth League, it's false. The membership of the Youth Council, yes, is 80%, 90% NRM. But that does not mean that once we are speaking on these issues, we then throw away our brains and think as you know, NRM young people in courts, because the issues that affect us young people are cross-cutting. Whether you're FDC, NRM, NUP, if it is unemployment, it has no color. If it is a poor road or it is a healthcare system, it has no color.
All right, so, thank you very much, Moses Kidega, for some clarity there. I still find it very disturbing that the National Youth Council comprises of 90% NRM-leaning youth leaders. I hope that can be reworked for the likes of Ivan Masawi of the FDC to mentor more, so you come through. Ivan Masawi, many thanks for coming through on Morning at NTV. As you go on to campaign, ensure that you tell Ugandans and the youth especially to stay cautious.
Yeah, but allow me to appreciate
against violence.
I appreciate NTV and National Media Group, first of all, on the debates, but also on the reporting. It is very key to have a critical driven population in an election cycle. So extend my appreciation, especially on debates, especially on reporting of the elections to the management here down at NTV. Thank you very much.
I'll leave it at that. NMG getting the plaudits there for bringing us the truth every day in what is no doubt a bold voice. Kickstarter will end right here. Stephen Ebide, my colleague, will be coming through a little bit later to give us the very latest on what's on ground, especially within Kampala and its metropolitan areas. Stay with us.